All right, officially, welcome. We are recording now. For those of you that are here, so good to have you. And for those of you that are watching the recording later on, that is awesome as well. And we are recording this. It is November 24th, 2024, just about to dive into the holiday season. So I wanted to just touch base with the really entire Lucra community and first off say thank you. It is because of you that I get to do the work that I do, and I do not take that lightly. I am forever grateful for you being part of this thing in whatever capacity. Maybe you're a free subscriber, maybe you're a coaching client, maybe you've come through one of my courses. Regardless of any of that, like I'm just delighted that you are here, that you're watching. So I'd ask people to let me know where they're at. Let me just check in on the chat and see what's going on. Okay, so we've got across the United States. Jenny says, hello, Mindy. Thank you so much. I am in the Northeast UK. Amazing. What's up, Atul? From Dallas. You haven't missed anything. We haven't even started. We have Canada on the line. Okay, amazing. Here's how we're going to roll through this. I'm going to start with what some of you are familiar with, which is a heart coherence meditation. What this is going to be like is just as if you were a paying client of mine and what we would do in a group setting. So this is not like the fake little free version. This is exactly the same thing that I would do. For those of you that haven't done that before or haven't ever maybe meditated before, don't worry, because I'm going to walk you through the whole thing. It's going to be very short, and I think that you will find yourself in a more positive state after we end that portion. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about what I am experiencing coaching people in like the collective right now. And what I mean by that is oftentimes for those of you that are coaches, you will totally get this, but oftentimes there are things that just keep coming up, maybe from various different clients. What's interesting for me is because I coach very different types of people. For instance, I have a group of traders that I coach. I have people who are entrepreneurs that I coach. And then there are people that are just like, hey, I'm trying to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to be doing with my life type of people that I coach. And interestingly, what's happening these days is that they're really all talking about the same thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that to kind of just open up our conversation together. Then we're going to open it up for open frame, open forum. I would encourage you all to put in any question that you have into the chat, any situation that you're going through that you could use a little assistance with, whatever that might be. I am very much looking at what are we doing right now in terms of the end of 2024 to prepare ourselves for having the absolute best 2025. It's not like we can just say, oh, hey, cool, it's a new year, let's go. There's some preparation, both mentally, maybe externally as well. If we actually want to bring our dreams into reality in the new year, like we gotta get to work. So I'm going to be sort of focused on that, but we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. There is nothing off limits here. So if you have a question, if you need something, please do post that into the chat. All right, to get us started so that we were all on the same page, and most importantly, so that you are on the same page with yourself, we're going to do something called getting into coherence. Now, that might seem a little mystical or magical or whatever, but it's straight up science. Neurocardiology is the science that this is based on. I'm not going to go into tons of detail on that. You can read my book if you want to learn more about the actual science of it and like how this works. But what it essentially is doing is it's allowing us in our physical bodies to get into a state of being well regulated. And that means that communication from the heart and from the brain can actually get through to where it's trying to go. It's like if you're incoherent, that's like you're sending out a message, but the message isn't getting through. Maybe somebody is slurring their speech or something like that. And you're like, Mindy, I can't understand what you're saying. Okay, well, that would be me speaking incoherently. If I'm speaking to you using coherent sentences, you can hopefully understand what I'm saying and the message is getting through. Well, the same thing happens in our physiology, in our biological bodies. And we need to be aware of that because it causes a lot of good things to happen when we are in coherence. There are tons of health benefits. There are tons of mental and emotional benefits, and there are tons of intuitive benefits. So, for those of you that are like, oh, I'm not intuitive, you're just not practicing the things that can help you realize that. So, at this point in time, I invite you to just get comfortable wherever you are in your seat, or if you're driving, or whatever. If you're driving, I'm not going to have you close your eyes, but if you are in a place that you can get comfortable, I invite you to do that. And I do invite you to just gently close your eyes. Why? Because we want to cut out some of the exterior distractions that might be going on around you at this time, focusing inward. And like I said, this will just be a couple of minutes, so it won't be too scary. The very first thing that I want you to do with your eyes closed is to focus your attention on your heart space, that center of your chest. You can actually place your hand on your chest if that will help you kind of just ground that energy, center that energy, focus that energy. Why? Because most of the time, for most people, we run through our daily lives up in our head. We are so headstrong, head driven, that we often don't even take the time to realize, oh, I have a whole other body below my neckline. What else is going on in this thing? So I invite you to just pay attention to that heart center space. Sometimes when you do pay attention to a different body part, or even place your attention anywhere else in your body intentionally, you can feel something that you might not have been aware of before. Maybe for me, it's usually like this sense of expansion, but it could be a tingling, it could be heat, it could be energy, it could be anything. And it doesn't even matter what it is, or if it doesn't feel like anything, that is okay too. The intention is to just follow along. So bringing that attention down to our heart, that's step one. Step two is to generate a positive feeling. That feeling could be gratitude. That's one of my favorites. That feeling could be joy. That feeling could be love, peace, loving kindness, whatever one you choose, but pick one of those. And I want you to see if you can go back in your mind to an experience that you had, or maybe a person that is in your life or was in your life, that generates that feeling even more. So, for instance, if I was going to pick gratitude, I can very easily go back in my mind to a day where I was in Kenya and I was meeting the kids that I sponsor, and just all of this amazing magic happened that day that should not have happened. And it was literally one of the most incredible days of my life. I can go back there in my mind, and that memory helps to boost that feeling of gratitude that I'm having. So that's the only goal, is just to say, okay, generate that feeling and tie it to an emotion or a person or a place or whatever you want to use as a booster to elevate that even more. Step three of our process is to then radiate that feeling. First and foremost, I want you to radiate it to yourself. So allow whatever that feeling is that you are experiencing, or if it's no feeling, totally fine. But just allow that to spread out through your body, not just in your heart space. Now, some people like to visualize this as light, or maybe a color, or both, just kind of spreading out through you. And once that's complete, I want you to shift that around and radiate that out into the world, maybe toward people you love, maybe toward a group of people in a place that you care about, maybe to the world at large or your community, neighborhood. It doesn't matter, but radiate that feeling out. And what we're doing, what we know from science through being able to study the electromagnetic field that the heart itself creates, is that when we put out positive intention like that, when we radiate that out consciously, we actually are impacting the field of the whole, the electromagnetic field of the whole, because there is the electromagnetic field of the whole planet. That's not what I wanted to happen. Let me do that. Okay, this is funny camera. And so we actually are contributing. Now, what do you want to contribute? Something positive or something maybe not so positive. So, with that, I invite you to feel and experience what maybe being in a little more coherent state feels like for you. And with that, you can open your eyes, come back into this space, and we will get started. Okay, let me pull up this and let's see what we've got going on. I just want to move some things around so I can see this. Okay, and like I said, drop in any questions, comments, anything that you would like to talk about into the chat. As far as the collective, what's going on kind of overall with a lot of my clients, with a lot of people these days, is the thing that I continue to come back to telling them, like again and again and again, is about the power of choice and that you all have a choice. I can't tell you how many people that I will talk to in recent months, and they'll be like, oh, well, but I have to do that because da, 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 da. And I'm like, is that even true? Do you have to do that? Who told you that you had to do that? Who is benefiting from you having to do that? Maybe it's family. And, it's, we've always done it this way. We've always been this way. So we have to continue, we ourselves have to continue to do that. My friends, that is not the case. You, all of you, have the power of choice any single day, any single hour, any single moment in time. You can choose to do something different. You can choose a different perspective. You can choose to say, okay, you know what? Every day up until now, I have looked at the, negativity in life. And interesting that my results are negative as well. How funny how that happens. But right now, today, like maybe I don't even know what I'm doing. Maybe I don't even know how to do this. But right now, today, I'm going to choose that I'm going to start doing it differently. And so, what happens in our brains and then in our lives is we know, again, from science, that neurons that fire together wire together. Now, what does that mean? It means that when you make a choice to do something different, the neural pathways in your brain are used to doing something else. They're used to doing the way in which you used to do it. And when you do something different, your brain, it actually doesn't like that because then the brain has to do a lot of work and the brain is quite lazy. The brain is like, hey, if I figured out something yesterday, that's good enough. Let's just stick with that. I don't want to have to like rewire myself to be able to do something different or to achieve different results. So we're just going to be lazy and we're going to do the same thing that we did yesterday. The amount of thoughts that we have in a given day, the statistics show it's something like, I don't know what it is these days, but like 70 to 80% of our thoughts are repetitive. So it's the same stuff. Well, those neural pathways are like grooved in deep. And when they're grooved in deep, it can be difficult to see a different way of doing things. But when you do see that way and you do that thing differently or take a different action or react in a different way, you then are able to shift that neural connection pattern. And then when you continue to shift that neural connection pattern, that's why they say when they fire together, they wire together, because eventually, with repetition over time, now this won't necessarily be like tomorrow, but over time, if you practice that same experience of like, nope, I'm going to choose positivity now. Nope, I'm going to choose positivity now. Even when something bad happens, nope, this is my new thing. Okay, cool. Eventually, that becomes much easier because those neural pathways in your brain have now wired together, and that has become the new norm, right? So that's then the easy part. And you can continue to build on that and build on that and build on that. So, this idea of having choice, it's simply about choosing, recognizing first, being aware that you have choice, and then doing something about that, taking a different action, saying something different to some person, whatever that might be in your life. It's all about you being very deliberate about what you're doing and what you're thinking. Because the doing, what happens before the doing? The thinking. The thinking comes first. The thinking or the thought leads to a feeling, which is, again, generally going to be about the same that you did yesterday and the day before and the day before that and the day before that. Unless you consciously are like, you know what? We're done with that. I'll tell you, even from my own experience, I've had to do this many times in many, many areas of my life. And most recently, it's been in trading. And like I was noticing this pattern that I just kept doing and kept doing and kept doing. And it was like driving me crazy until the point that I got so fed up with myself that I'm like, we are done with doing it that way. And every day when I show up to the markets, like, do I still kind of want to do it that way? Yeah, because I had conditioned myself into that being the norm, but it's not the norm that I want. And so, again, to come back to this choice, you get to choose what you want out of life. Now, it's not the only thing that creates your experience because there are other people involved. Often there are life events that are often evolved or involved or evolved. And those things, of course, contribute. But we ourselves always have the opportunity to decide what we want and also how to react to those external things. So that I just wanted to start with that because like I said, that's been coming up a lot in one-on-one clients and other conversations I've had is just literally reminding people like you do have the choice. And if you think you don't, if you believe that you don't have a choice in how you live your life or what you're going to do with your life, in a way, that's very convenient because if you don't believe that you have a choice, that keeps you safe. It keeps you safe in your comfort zone. You don't have to do anything that is scary or new or different or something you've never done before. And that's a very safe place to be. But as much as that keeps you safe, it also keeps you stuck. And I don't believe that we are here to lead lives being stuck constantly. We can certainly go through some challenges or go through some obstacles, but the key word there is through. So, as many of you know, because you've been in this world of Lucra for a long time, you know my backstory. There are tons of different things in my life that have been like big, big challenges. And yet I worked through them, which, oh, by the way, means that you can too. All right, let me jump into some of these questions. If you are just joining, welcome. Delighted to have you here. And drop anything that you want to chat about, want my opinion on, want coaching on. If you have a question, drop that into the chat. We're going to start with, I love this question already because this keyword just popped out of me. So Jack says, I am a brilliant procrastinator. And I'm wondering if you have any tips. Yes, I do, because I am also a brilliant procrastinator. I'll tell you a story about procrastination. When I was, this would have been in my late 20s. This was when I was first thinking about starting a coaching business. I didn't know anything about coaching or business. And I thought one of the first things I should probably do is maybe I should hire a coach myself. So, like, I knew what I was getting myself into. So, I did that. I was living in Michigan at the time. This was like 2007, I guess, ish, 2007 ish. I hired this coach, and that was actually the very first thing that I showed up to with her to talk about. I'm like, okay, I'm a huge procrastinator. Like, how do I get over that? And she had some very, very good advice for me because she said, okay, well, as I'm hearing you, Mindy, talk about this experience of procrastination that you're having, she said, it actually kind of sounds like you enjoy that. And I was like, well, yeah, I kind of do, but it's such a bad, it's such a negative thing. Like, how do I fix that? And she was like, who said it's a bad or negative thing? Because if you are able, like her talking to me, if you are able to have the freedom that you like to have in your life, And you are able to keep that freedom just wide open, really until kind of like the last minute or the last hour or the last day, to really go into like pure focus mode. Ultimately, what's wrong with that? And I mean, I wanted to fight about it. I was like, well, everything's wrong about it because there's so many books like how not to procrastinate and da 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 da. And she's like, listen, figure out what's working for you and what's not working for you, and then come back to me and let's see if that's even on the list. And what I realized is I actually do love. Now, this is me personally. This might not resonate for all of you, but I love the ability to keep my mind open, keep my schedule open, keep my calendar open. And then I know approximately how long different things will take me to get done. And then for some reason, it's almost as if I need that fire under my butt at that last minute, the final hour, to be able to just like get into just pure flow with whatever it is that I'm working on. And I love that too. Like, I love being in flow. I love also having the freedom. So if I can find this harmonious balance in my own life between that freedom and that flow, is that really a problem? Well, I would say no. So that might be applicable to some of you. For others of you, I would look at procrastination like this. Procrastination is not about being lazy. Jenny says, I love this answer to procrastination. It's just what is like, who are you, right? If it's working for you, then let's not focus on quote unquote problems that aren't even real problems. Let's focus on things that are that are issues. So, but back to the other kind of perspective on procrastination, like I was saying, it's not about being lazy. It's not necessarily about not knowing what to do, but that can be a part of it. What I have seen in, let's say, with clients of mine, and they are procrastinating, it's ultimately about fear. Am I going to get this right? Is this going to be good enough? Do I even know what I'm doing in this particular context? And oftentimes that fear is what is underlying, and that fear can be paralyzing, so much so that we will do everything else other than the thing that we are supposed to be doing. Now, even that, though, sometimes can work out in a good way. When I was in grad school for writing, I'll tell you what, the weeks that we had big writing projects due, my friends and I, we would laugh all of the time as we were like messaging each other, because we'd be like, oh, our houses are so clean. The dishes are all done. The laundry is all done. Everything is all done other than the writing that we are supposed to be doing that is due at the end of the week. Other than that, everything else got handled. And it's like, in a way, it's a good motivator. And here's the solution. The solution is to trust yourself. If you can trust yourself, you may not know what you're doing, which most of us don't, just to be clear. We're making it up as we go. You may not know what you're doing, but if you can trust yourself, that can take away some of the fear aspect. And you can look at whatever it is that you are trying to pursue as an experiment. Okay, I don't know if this is going to work. And how could you possibly know if it's going to work? It may be something that you've never done before. It may be a business venture that you've never tried out before. It may be an amount of money that you're trying to make that you've never done before. How could you possibly know all the things about what you're supposed to do to get to that goal or to get to that destination? You can't, because you've never done it before. Now, you can certainly have mentors, you can certainly have coaches, but still, it's going to be an experiment with you yourself to be able to recognize, okay, I just need to trust myself and trust the process, that eventually, when I get to the end of this thing, I will have learned something. Maybe the end of that thing is going to be a big fat failure. I could look at the first couple of years in business when I started my coaching business as a big fat failure. As many of you know, that experience, those couple years, ended up with me being homeless, evicted from the apartment that I was living in Portland, Oregon. My house that I owned in Michigan was foreclosed. I ended up filing for bankruptcy, and it was a disaster. And yeah, okay, I could look at that as a failure, or I could say, holy cow, that was a really intense, powerful learning lesson, and keep going. And then coming back to what I was saying earlier about going through something, like getting through something, that's really the key, is just to keep going. So figure out who you are in this procrastination thing. Is it a superpower that you have? Because I know, like, I've had this conversation with other clients of mine, and I remember one of them in particular, maybe he's here. um, he was like, oh, that feels like such a relief, because he was just doing his normal way of doing. And I'm like, it's okay to do it that way. Like, it's working for you. So why are we worried about changing it? So that's the deal with procrastination. Okay, David says, I joined this call. Okay, I joined this call because my wife recently passed away, and I know you know that experience all too well. How did you get through the grief? Okay, so David, first and foremost, just sending you all the love. Like, my heart, all of our hearts in this thing are with you. And I'll tell you all, because I'm, whether or not this was a recent situation or others of you are experiencing grief, it is something that that will impact all of us at some point in time. Whether you have already had that experience, whether that was a close person to you or maybe not as close, grief is an interesting thing. And I'll tell you two things, two tips. It's funny to think about, like, condensing grief down into like two simple tips. But these are what I learned in my experience. So, first, grief is a very individual experience. And that means that for any of you, don't ever allow someone outside of yourself to tell you how to grieve. I had people that would tell me, like, oh, you need to be around people. That would have been the absolute worst advice for me. For me. I'm not saying for you, but for me. Why? Because I am an introvert. I am a hermit. I process best on my own, like where it's quiet, where I can journal and write and think and feel. And that's just how I showed up, right? That's my operating system. I have a dear friend who, with just a couple of years ago, she lost someone very, very close to her as well. And we were kind of laughing together because she was like, wow, Mindy, I did grieve so differently than you. She is a people person. She, like, needed desperately to be around other humans to fully experience what she needed to experience. And both are great. Both are the best ways. Why were they the best ways? Because they were the best ways for us individually. So again, don't ever let anyone tell you, like, the right way to grieve, because there isn't a right way. They're all the right way. And it's whatever is going to be best for you. How do you know? You have to do some work. You have to know yourself and know what's going to be the best for you. And, obviously people all have good intentions in that kind of a situation. So if the people are telling you, oh, well, you should be, eating healthy and working out and getting outside to get some sunshine. Yes, you should be doing all those things. Yes. But in terms of the things where, like, to me, myself, it probably actually would have been a much more detrimental thing if I was making the attempt even to be with other people at that time. Some of you know the story of what I did. I actually left. Sean and I were living in Arizona at the time. He passed away. And my best friend, Keith, very, very, very generously offered me, he and his wife have a second house in La Quinta, California. And he was like, Min, why don't you just go stay there for as long as you need to? Amazing. And that's what I did. And I had friends that reached out and they said, hey, can we come visit you in La Quinta? And I told them no. I literally only let one person come and see me during that time. And who did I allow to come and see me? Someone who is fully aware and like in ownership of herself. Like I knew that if she came, she'd be good regardless of what I was doing. And not good in the sense of like everything's happy and amazing because she just lost one of her best friends and my husband as well. But like I didn't have to worry about how she'd be doing, even if it was terrible, right? Other people, other friends of mine, even, it was like they were much more dramatic people than I am. And, you know, they would say that about themselves. Many of them are much more emotional people than I am. I tend to be more on the logical and rational side of things. And so I put a boundary around like what I was willing to accept and not accept, even when people were trying to be lovely, trying to be very helpful, trying to, you know, love on me. But you all need to be able to say, like, that is not what I need right now. Thank you. Appreciate it. So grateful. And like, this is my boundary of what I'm doing. So that was the way that I did grief. The second tip that I would say is, and I was very, very conscious of this through even still to this day, but obviously much more so like when it was early on. I never once apologized for my emotions. So if you guys think about in a normal conversation, or even if like somebody is speaking, you know, on stage or something like that, and they start to get a little choked up, they start to get a little emotion, what do they often say? I'm sorry. And I was like, I'm not ever going to say that because I'm not sorry. This is true for me right now. This is real for me right now. This is where I'm at right now. So if they can't handle that, or if they're uncomfortable about that, like that's their deal. That's not on me. And I am not going to apologize for being in that state because that was real. That's the state I was in. So just being able to own what is going on for you and not feel like you have to apologize for your rawness or realness or anything like that. That was a huge, and thanks for the thumbs up, Rick. That was a huge thing for me. And I was very aware of that. And I've shared that then with a lot of other people that are in that situation. So those are the two things that I would say about that. And once again, David, just so much love. And, you know, if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. Kevin says, ooh, this is a fun question. Can you talk about self-publishing or going the traditional route? Yes, I absolutely can. There's a couple pros and cons, and I know many of you in here might be interested in someday writing a book, and I highly, highly encourage you to do that, even if there are a trillion other books that are on your topic or a trillion other novels and you want to write a novel. Okay, that's fine. Do you. Like bring your story forward, allow your story and your understanding and your awareness to be experienced by other people. And here's the biggest differences. If you go traditional publishing, there's a lot of backing that you have. Why? Because it's a company that is like supporting that effort. They will help you with things like marketing to an extent. I mean, you still have to do a lot on your own, but to an extent, they're going to handle a lot of the things like book cover design and layout and all of that stuff. The challenge on that side, so the pros and cons on both, there isn't a one right way or the other. The challenge on that side is most books, unfortunately, don't make it big. So people are like, oh, I want to get a big book advance. Well, awesome if you can get it, but you may or may not get that. Oh, I want my book to be like on the New York Times bestseller. Okay. Amazing if that happens. But like, if you just look at the numbers for most writers, that doesn't happen. So then, like, what are you going to get out of it? Are you doing it for the money? If you are, there might be some more profitable ways to get your book out there. If you're just doing it to like tell your story and have a publishing house behind you, amazing, cool. The reason that I in the past have chosen self-publishing is because I have very high standards of different things. And I like to play a part in the creation of the different aspects. For instance, designing a cover or the layout. Like I actually enjoy doing those things. If those of you out there don't enjoy those things, like don't self-publish because you have to learn a lot of things. It's a lot of work. And for those of you that don't like that process, it will not be worth it. Promise you. The issue is like with self-publishing, of course, you don't have like Penguin Random House behind you or some big fancy name. But with today's technology and with today, I mean, just the internet, the connection that we all have, there's a lot of cool ways to promote books and get books out there and also to sell books fairly easily online. So I myself love that, independent publishing, like my own publishing house, but it may not be for everyone. So if you have more specific questions about that, we can certainly go into that. Let's see. Judy says, can you talk about ambivalence and what has helped you make really hard choices in life? I can. And part of ambivalence, I think, also comes back maybe this. Now, I don't know you, Judy, so this could be completely in left field, but oftentimes people are ambivalent when they're scared, because they don't know the outcome of what they're looking to do. And a lot of people are like, yeah, well, I kind of just like maybe won't pursue anything then. And then, like I said earlier, that keeps you safe. However, all of you are here for much, much, much more than that. So, whatever this current situation is that you are feeling ambivalent about, I want to encourage you and all of you to explore the feelings you have around the various choices that you might pursue. So I've had people, especially early stage coaches, let's say, in my work with them, there's a lot of questions like, well, should I do this or should I do this? Should I make a blog or should I make a podcast? And your situation might be, totally more impactful in terms of like life choices, but it's the same principle. The thing that I would always come back to with them is to ask them, which one is going to bring you more joy? And I'll tell you, I'll use my own example just by way of teaching this idea is last year-ish, I was looking at a choice that I had. And honestly, I've continued to look at this choice of like, okay, do I want to go more into trading? In other words, spending more of my time and energy focused on trading the financial markets, or do I want to, build up my coaching practice? Like I don't see a ton of clients these days just because I'm doing all kinds of other stuff, but maybe I want to do that because I really, really, really do love that aspect. Do I want to, focus on doing live events again? These are all great choices. But looking at the pros and cons, looking at what was going to bring me the greatest joy, I'll tell you why I have navigated toward more of the trading stuff is because as much as I love coaching, as much as I love running live events like HeartPath, as much as I like all of that stuff, you know what I don't love about that stuff? The marketing and the sales. Like if I want to run an event, it might be the most amazing event that anyone has ever been to. But if I can't get anybody to come to the event, then that doesn't help. That doesn't help me financially, like be able to afford my life, pay my bills, pay the rent. Um, it doesn't help any of the attendees that may have thought about coming. So you really, for the entrepreneur side of my life, I have had to really dive into the sales and marketing aspect, which is not my comfort zone. It's not something I necessarily enjoy. It's not something I'm even necessarily good at. So I can look at trading and I can say, that suits me better. Why? Because I don't have to talk to anybody. At least in a sales conversation. I love talking to people, but not in that way. I don't want to have to convince people. Most of the time, many of you have been on my webinars when I'm selling something, and my whole thing is like, hey, if you want to come and do this with me, amazing. That would be so awesome. And if you don't, that's also awesome. Like, do you? And that's about the extent of it. So there's like no hard sales or anything. But in trading, I found a situation where I could make some pretty decent money and not have to put myself into like the sales and marketing stuff that I really didn't like. So that was bringing me more joy. Here's the other thing that it did for me is I am a freedom maniac. I love having freedom in my day to like flow through what do I feel like doing right now? Oh, I'd like to call a friend and connect with that person. Awesome, let's do that. Oh, I'd like to go out to lunch, or even better, go out to breakfast. I love food. So, like, let's do that. Okay, cool. And with trading, I found a way that I could spend just a couple hours per day, be able to afford my life, and then have the whole rest of the day to whatever, work on a book that I'm writing or go hiking or whatever. So, that just very much suits me. That brings me more joy. Now, does that mean I'm not going to put myself out of my comfort zone and like I'm not going to do events again, I'm not going to do coaching again? No, because like I said, I love that stuff and it's worth the discomfort to get through that stuff that I don't like to get to the part that I really really like. But looking at, okay, where is joy leading me? Where is, if you were to listen to what your heart wants versus what your brain is telling you, or what society is telling you, or what your parents or children or spouse or whoever is telling you you should do this, check in with your heart. And when you can allow that to be your guiding force, the rest works out. It's not always easy, but it definitely works out. Okay, Jenny says, I self-published too for similar reasons. Awesome, Jenny. What's up, Bob? Atul says, so Mindy, as extension of the publishing topic, how to start and approach digital publishing, of course, want to kick off my campaign for personal finance business. It depends. I mean, there's so many different ways, Atul, that you could do that. Like start a YouTube channel, start a publication on Substack, and start a mailing list. That's the biggest thing, is just to get people already in your crew so that when something interesting happens, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in a sec, you're ready. And I'll give you an example from my husband's career. So Sean's forte was not necessarily organization and operations, like not at all. He was amazing on stage. Many of you seen him speak. He was amazing as a therapist. He was amazing at making online content. So, so good. But he would say those were really the only three things that he was good at. So, like I said, organization, operations, not his jam. So when I met him, he had like, he really didn't have a good system for a lot of that stuff. And there was a time where something, I don't even remember now what it was, but something of his went crazy viral. And he was like, oh crap, like I don't even have a newsletter set up. I don't even have a page where these people can opt in. There was a client of ours named Heidi many years ago. And when she first came to our events and she met Sean in real life, she was like, Sean, I saw you on whatever, she saw him on like Mind Valley or something. She was like, I saw you on this thing and I went to your site and I wanted to buy something. Like I wanted to be able to invest like in your program or whatever. And she's like, literally, you didn't have anything to sell me. It's because you hadn't done the work in advance. And then like he had this viral experience where all of those potential leads, people who might be interested in hearing from him again, there wasn't anything for them to do. So Atul, to your question, is just to get started with some of the foundational things is like set up a mailing list so people can opt in to hear what you have to say. Set up a YouTube channel so you can like have that as, a great filter to bring those people in. There's lots of ways to do it. And I always say, think about for you, which is going to be easiest or best. Are you best on video? Are you best on audio? Or are you best in writing? Pick one of those, dive in. That would be the best way to start. And Judy, you're very welcome. I appreciate you asking that question. I'm just looking at the clock. We have about 13 minutes left, so maybe time for a couple more questions. If anybody has them, I'm going to answer this one from Juan. And by the way, Juan, I'm so happy to see you in here because it's been a minute. So thank you for asking this question. Juan says, can you talk about the feeling of having enough? I shouldn't ask for more. That is such a good topic. And yeah, I can talk a lot about that because, as many of you know, that's been a thing. It's been a thing for me in my own life. We, as a human race, as a society, as various different cultures, we are very much under the expectation of like, this is how things should be, or this is how people should be. Now, obviously, that can be very polarizing when different people have different opinions on, like, this is how it should be. We can see that played out in our politics, politics around the world, not just here in the US. But really, what that comes down to is you having enough courage to truly listen in to what your heart is telling you that you want, and being able to say, that's what I'm going to go for. I'll give you an example. In my own life, the goal that I have financially is asking more than anyone in my family has ever made. So there's a thing there with, like, who am I to say that's what I want? Who am I when all these, other people have worked so hard and done so many different things and were never able to achieve that thing? Who am I to think that I could achieve that thing? Who am I to even admit that I want that? And the truth of it comes down to being so you, so purely in touch with the desire of your own heart. Because I will tell you this, there's a reason that you have that desire. There's a reason that you have that goal. There's a reason that you have that wish or that dream, whatever you want to call it. And that reason, I believe, is like, that's why you're here. That's why you're in this lifetime, to pursue that thing. And it's not, let me be so clear here, it's not about the destination of getting that thing. It's who you must become on the journey toward that thing. So when people talk about manifestation, that's kind of a key word these days. Oh, how do we manifest that? How do we manifest that? Well, we're talking about the same thing that has been always talked about. Some people in certain aspects would call it prayer, answered prayer. Some people would call it creation. Some people call it manifestation. Some people, say there's nothing like that at all. It's just pure luck. It doesn't matter to me what you believe. I say, look at what we know to be true, which is sometimes based on the science, and sometimes based on things that science cannot yet prove. But we know for us that that is true. How do we know? Because it's our experience. We live it on a day-to-day basis. So I don't really care. It's cool when science can back up a lot of the stuff that I teach. That's awesome. But I'm not worried about science backing it up, because I'm like, yo, science hasn't even caught up yet. The technology isn't yet there to recognize all of this stuff. So going back to this idea of, like, who am I to ask for more? Who you are to ask for more is the one that was given that dream, the one that was given that desire, the one that was given that burning fire within you, to see if you were courageous enough to pursue it. A lot of times when people get, maybe they'll have some success in their business, or maybe especially if it's online and people can witness it, some people get a lot of crap. Who do you think you are to be like better than the rest of us? When this can happen sometimes when somebody maybe decides to move out of their hometown. Who are you to think you're better than us? Like you can't stay here, and a lot of times that's exactly what the case is, because your environment has a direct correlation to how successful you can be. If you are going to surround yourself with people who believe in your dreams, who encourage that desire within you, who, in a lot of, like, I surround myself with a lot of people who have done way, way, way more than I have done in my life, because then they're like, come on, let's go. What's your problem? Like, you can do it. Come up here with me. And that is great to have that encouragement. But if you do not have that encouragement, if you have even worse, the opposite of that, where people are like constantly even on your case, well, who are you, to want such big desires and big dreams? You have to go back to what you know is true for you. You wouldn't have that desire or that dream if there wasn't like this, if the seed of it didn't already exist within you. Now, we got to do a lot of work to bring that seed into a beautiful flowering plant or a fruit tree or whatever it is that we're growing. We have a ton of work to do to get to that stage of it. But go back to knowing, or just choose. Here's the thing. We talked about choice in the very beginning of this. You have the choice to say, this is the path that I am going to follow, and this is what I want. Who cares if you don't even have a reason for what you want? You want it because you want it. Okay. I actually learned that from Dan Sullivan, the founder of Strategic Coach. He was like, you can want something just because you want it. And for me, I was like, oh, that's a new idea. Just because I want something is enough reason to pursue it. And he was like, yeah, you don't have to have all these backings, but really, really recognize who is in your environment. Are they encouraging you? Are they helping you? Are they seeing that potential with you? One of the things that I asked my friends, because I told you guys I had this real big financial goal, and with some of my like inner circle that I shared that intention with, this was probably last year. What I asked them, because a lot of people will say, oh, well, what can I do, to support you in that vision, or what can I do to help, or whatever. And they're all lovely intentions with that. But I said, just see me there. Just like see me, visualize with me that finish line goal for me. That is the best thing that you can do for me. And, I'm not there yet, but still my intention. All right, let's see what else we got in these last few minutes. Excuse me. Bob says, Mindy, you have a soothing voice, great communication skills, first time on your Zoom. Well, Bob, welcome. And thank you so much. I so appreciate those kind words. Christine says, yes. Casey says, I have really bad self-sabotage. Self-sabotage is a nasty little beast. I'll finish with this. First of all, Casey, you are not alone. I will just speak for myself. I won't even speak for anyone else on here. However, knowing humans, I imagine that I can speak for probably most of the people on here. Self-sabotage. Now, what's so annoying to me about self-sabotage is that it's us that is our biggest issue. It's us that is our biggest challenge. It's us that is our biggest enemy. And it's like, goodness, how do we even get past ourselves? And for me, the way that I continue to need to remind myself is that the way that I look at life and the things that I believe to be true about myself are the things that will create the results that I am wanting. Or guess what? You're going to create your results regardless. So you're going to create the results that you don't want, or you're going to create the results that you do want. So we get to pick. And recognizing that when I trust in myself, when I believe in myself, when I actually feel like, okay, maybe I am worthy of these goals. Maybe I am able to get to those goals, even if no one else on the planet has ever told me that, or even if they've told me that I can't. I can choose not to believe them. I mean, if you look at people who experience something so extreme, like going through the Holocaust, we know that there are very different examples of the people that were in that situation. Some of them just lost all hope. Some of them didn't have a reason to get up the next morning because they're like, this is the end. This is terrible. This is the worst situation I could have possibly even ever imagined. So, what's the point? But others of them, and thankfully, many of these people wrote down their experience so we can learn from them. Others of them said, yeah, this might be my experience right now, but that doesn't change who I'm going to be inside. This outside context, this environment that I'm in. Yeah, of course, that's going to have an influence, but it doesn't get the final say. Who gets the final say? I do. And if I get the final say, what do I want that say to be? Well, for me personally, I am going to choose to continue that path toward what I believe is my reason for being. I'm going to choose that on a day-to-day basis. What can I do today to become more of the person that is able to achieve that crazy goal? What do I need to do right now, like in this moment, to get closer to that, just to even remind myself of what it is that I want, why I want it, and oftentimes when we stick close to that, the how and the questions and the other stuff, that stuff tends to work itself out. Now, like I said earlier, you can have coaches, mentors, people in your life that can be that encouragement to you, but you're still going to need to do all this inner work to become the person who is able to say, yeah, I achieved that goal, even when maybe the whole world told you that wasn't even possible. Maybe no one had done it before. Maybe no one you knew had done it. Maybe no one had done it in your family. And you're like, okay, I am feeling called to be the courageous soul that steps forward, and we're going to do something different with this. So we are just about out of time. I wanted to thank you. Thank you so much for just jumping on here, some of you for being vulnerable and being a part of this adventure that is Lucra. We have a ton of cool stuff coming up in the coming year. I'm going to get back to doing live events, which I am so stoked for because, as I mentioned earlier, they're just a lot of fun, and that's like probably the best thing that I do is my live events. And so stay tuned for some of those things. And if you need anything, I look forward to staying in touch with you. We are jumping into the holiday season. Yes, as in person, but I don't think it'll be Texas. I can almost guarantee that it won't be Texas, but it will be some lovely place. So I will invite you to join me. Let's see. I feel I have done a great thing coming here and listening to you today. Well, I appreciate that, Casey. And that's awesome. And the thing though is like you can do this, you all can do this yourself, right? It's reminding yourself of who you are. It's reminding yourself of what it is that you want. It's reminding yourself that there's a reason for what you want. Even if you don't have like a valid reason, it's just because you want it. Okay, cool, great. So you're very welcome. Thank you so much for the session. You're very welcome. Thank you for your sage words. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great to be with you. Yes, Christine. Yes, yes. Are you making money in your trading as I am a day trader also? Yes, I do make money as a day trader. Michael says, oh, the wheels are turning in my mind. Good. That is the best because that's how I see my job. My job is to inspire And that is to look at, obviously I can't see you guys, but to look at any of you and to say, hello, there's a reason that you're here. Let's get on it. Let's get to it. So go figure out what that is. And then if there's a way I can help you in that process, amazing. Like, let's go. So, and also to be an example of possibility. Cause like I said, I'm trying to do things that like people in my family have never done and people that I know haven't done. So my intention with these kinds of things is to light that spark of inspiration. So Michael, I appreciate that you said that. Thank you. You've got such a great gift. So glad you found it. And Sherry, go get them. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you as always. Jean, hey, Jean, really good to see you. My time well spent. Thank you, Mindy. Judy says, this was super. I appreciate the reminder to trust myself and trust my heart. Thank you for this lovely offering. You guys. Okay. Before I start getting emotional, um, can we do some coaching together? Yeah, you guys. Okay. So real quick, and I wasn't even going to do this, but since you're asking, Christine, everything right now going into Black Friday week, let's call it, is 50% off on my site. So if you guys go, I'll just type this in here for everybody. If you go to, let's see, HTTPS, Lucra, which is my site, as in lucrative. I want you all to be living more lucrative lives. That's not just about money, by the way. Lucra.com, I think it's shop. Everything there is on sale in addition to one-on-one coaching. So that's just https://lucra.com/coaching. And I will give you the discount code. Here's the coupon code. It's in the black, all caps, all one word, in the black for Black Friday. And everything is on sale other than I have one very teensy tiny trading course that's like a little mini course. It's $9. I didn't put that one on sale because, listen, if you're not willing to invest $9 in your own education and development, we're probably not going to be a good fit. Everything else is on sale for 50% off. Everything, Atul. Which course is that? It's all my courses. So whether you guys want to learn about trading stuff, whether you guys want to learn about professional speaking from my husband, Sean Stevenson, whether you want to learn about, no, it's not 49, it's 9. You probably already own it. It's called My Favorite Indicator. It's $9 and it's actually $9. It's not on sale. Everything else, coaching is 50% off. That's called a catalyst session. If you want more detail, yeah, I knew you had it. You can write to this email, hello@lucra.com, and we'll get you sorted out with figuring out what's going to be the best path forward. You have the great gift of simplifying things. Mindy, I don't know how I feel about the word slayer, but okay, thank you. All right, guys, I will let you go back to your Sunday, your regular life. Once again, truly, though, I'm so appreciative of you being here, you taking your time out of your day from family or whatever else that you have going on. All my best to you as we jump into the holiday season coming up. And then, let's get going for what we want to create in 2025. It's going to be an awesome year. There are a lot of cool things that are showing up, and I just can't wait to see what you all will create. So once again, thank you so much. Reach out if you need anything. Always good to see you. Take care.